So everybody would gather in a place where there's an open ground and they have a stage put up there. So everybody would be there in that place there, and there will be some cultural program happening. So once there was this farmer and he had completed his work, he came back home, he ate his dinner and he was ready to go. So he rolled up a mat, tucked it below his arms, and he walked up to the place, and he found that he reached that place 20 minutes early. And when he reached that place 20 minutes early, he thought, okay, let me have a quick nap. So he spread the mat and he went to sleep. By the time he woke up, he found that the whole cultural program was over. So again he rolled up his mat, tucked it below his arms, and he came back. Simple. This is the story. A very small, simple story, but very powerful, because that's what sometimes our life is also all about. We come here and this whole drama of life is happening, and many times we are asleep to the real purpose itself. And the entire life just passes. So what is the glory of this human life? The scriptures say that 84 lakh species one has to go through. And then one comes to the first human birth. So biologically, the evolution takes that many births, that much time to get this human body. One of the most important distinguishing factors between us and the animals is our spine. The spine of animal is horizontal. The spine of the human being is vertical. It has its own physical advantages, but as many times Gurudev would say that in the animal, the head, the heart, stomach and the reproductive organs are all at the same level. But for the human being, the head is at the top, then the heart, then the stomach, and then the organs. So the erect spine, very important, and the head that we have, the buddhi that we have, even from psychology standpoint, physiology standpoint, this frontal lobe is what distinguishes us from the whole creation, in the whole creation. So what is that speciality of this? The intellect that we have in this human life. The intellect is there even in other creatures, but it is not functioning intelligently by choice. It is functioning by instinct, by impulse. An animal also discriminates, uses the intellect. What to eat, what not to eat, who is my friend, who is my enemy. An animal also will do all that kind of discrimination. But human being is very capable of special discrimination. So what is real, what is unreal, what is the self, what is the not self, what is the means, what is the goal, what is happiness, what is sorrow. So many different types of discriminations we are able to do because of this buddhi. And the most fundamental reason why we are able to do that is because the buddhi has the capability of self-awareness. We are aware that we are human beings. We are aware I am a man or a woman. Consciously we are aware. And that conscious awareness is what makes us unique from everyone else. So we have a desire to evolve. So we can do many things for our internal growth, evolution. Consciously we can master our mind. Consciously we can do many things which are to make us bring control over our emotions. So the capabilities of buddhi are all these: the ability to control our emotions, the ability to know ourselves, the ability to consciously evolve. We also have this ability to logically think, come to conclusions, make choices. So these are different capabilities buddhi has to explore the unknown realms. The value systems, we follow certain value system: right, wrong, honesty, straightforwardness. All this is the capability of the buddhi, where we can stick to certain values uncompromisingly. These are all specialities of the buddhi, but the most important factor in this buddhi is the ability to discriminate, to separate. Vivek Shakti. So that Vivek, the ability to distinguish, to discriminate, is a very, very crucial quality of the buddhi. And the Vivek that human being is capable of, as I said earlier, is the Sukshma Vivek, the subtle forms of Vivek. Not the Sthula Vivek. That also we need to do, but that's the that anyway every creature is also going to do. What we need to use it is for this special Vivek, which is to know the self, to know who am I. So that self-awareness which we right now have about our personality, about our relative identity, that can be heightened, that can be used to know the absolute truth, that can be used to gain that state, gaining which nothing more remains to be gained. So this ability of the buddhi is what our scriptures try to awaken in us. So books like Vivek Chudamani are called Prakarana Grantha. They are the introductory textbooks which will introduce us to the terms and terminologies and also the concepts of Vedanta. To understand the main books which are called as a Shastra. Shastra is the Vedas, Puranas, Itihasa. Those are all the Shastras, the Upanishads, where the identity of the individual is revealed. What is my true identity? To be able to understand that, what are the things I must build to know my true nature? So Shankaracharya ji wrote Tattva Bodh, then he wrote the Atma Bodh. So in Tattva Bodh, in prose form, he introduced the concept, the journey of a seeker from bondage to liberation. In Atma Bodh, he used analogies, and through analogies from daily life, he introduced many concepts of Vedanta. And then comes the bigger picture, the bigger composition is Vivek Chudamani, where we see his poetry and we see his mastery of the Sanskrit language, as well as his love and compassion for the people, expressing in this vast canvas where 581 verses are there. And many, many sadhana aspects also he has included in this. So what the attitude of a seeker should be, what type of meditations one should do, what type of control one should live in, how to discriminate each kosha, how to make that kosha very strong and then rise above it. Many such things he introduces. This also has a setting where the background is a disciple goes to a teacher, asks questions, and then 7 questions he asks. And then the entire Vivek Chudamani is an answer to these 7 questions. So Vivek means to discriminate. And this capability to discriminate, if we don't have, we must at least have Shraddha. So either Vivek or Shraddha, because even in Shraddha, what we do, if I cannot discriminate, I cannot think logically, I cannot have this understanding of what is to be discriminated, then I depend on the knowledge of some wise person or a scripture. I am depending on their Vivek. So either ways, either I use my Vivek or I use somebody else's Vivek, and then I evolve higher. In our Puranas, there the depiction is very nice of this principle. We are called the children of Manu and Shatrupa. They are the two children of, they are the two creations of Prajapati, Brahmaji. So Manu and Shatrupa, and so from there comes the word Manushya. Manu and Shatrupa. So Manu is Man, means Manute, to think, to discriminate, to analyze. So Vivek is born from that reflection, from thinking. And if I don't have that ability to think consistently, I must at least have Shraddha, faith. Shraddha means the faith that there is a higher reality. Shrat means Sat. So Shraddha is Astikatayaha Abhidhanam. It is the quality because of which we believe that there is an existence of a higher reality which our senses cannot perceive. This is where the human being is different from everyone else, because when I believe only what I see, then I am just like any other creature. You see, the word Pashu literally means this. Pashyati iti Pashu. One who believes only what one sees, that person is called a Pashu. So human being sees just like any other creature. But we also know that our senses are limited and whatever we see need not be real. So we see the sky as blue, but that is not real. Earth is round, but we don't see it round, we see it flat. So many such things that we see which appear real to us, but they are not real. And when what we don't see, which is real, but they are real. So the ability of the buddhi to perceive that which is unseen, not blindly. There is no, many times we use the word blind faith. There is nothing called blind faith, because faith itself is that which is built based on clarity, based on logic, and based on the experiential proof of someone else who has experienced it, which right now I am not experiencing. So I have faith, and when I start applying that, I will eventually come to experience it. So two very important definitions of faith that Gurudev used to give are: belief reinforced with conviction is faith. And that conviction comes because of logical thinking as well as because of experiential clarity. So belief reinforced with conviction is faith. And faith is to see, is to believe what you don't see. And the result of it is you see what you believed in. So when I don't see something, but I have that faith that it exists. So I don't see the reality. I don't see the higher cause, the world. But I still believe that it exists, because there are many, many reasons for it. And so a person who has this faith, or has Vivek, or has both, life is utilized very well when we have this. The ability to think logically and come to know our true self, or have faith in the efforts of, in the knowledge that the scriptures give, the wise people have experienced, either of these two. And actually, Vivek will lead to Shraddha also. If Vivek does not lead to Shraddha, then that Vivek is not complete. It is not proper. And Shraddha will further strengthen and make a person realize the truth. So Vivek, as we go along, we will see Vivek will lead to Shraddha, Shraddha will lead to knowledge, experience. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. So either one must have one's own Vivek, or one must depend on somebody else's Vivek, which is Shraddha. And hence we are called Manushya, the children of Manu and Shatrupa. Now in this Vivek, the Chudamani, so Vivek is like the crown. Human being, if we imagine human being is this body, the crown that we are wearing is our buddhi. The roof and crown of creation, human being, is because of this buddhi. And in that crown, the crest jewel, Chudamani, the main jewel, the crest jewel. So the crown is the crown of Vivek, and the speciality of that crown, the Chudamani of that crown, is Atma and Anatma Vivek. What is the self and what is the not self? To know myself only as this relative identity, that is very limited knowledge. The different roles that I play, to know myself only through those, that actually is the ignorance. That is the cause of a lot of our trouble, or the sense of finitude. But to know who am I in my essential nature, that is the Atma. This discrimination of Atma and Anatma is what Vivek Chudamani is all about. That how to distinguish between the self and the not self, how to rise above this not self, the identification with the not self, and how to get established in the self. The entire journey is for that. So how to develop the fourfold qualifications, go to the teacher and get to know the truth. That is this whole journey. Shankaracharya ji has this one book, Vivek Chudamani, was very, very dear to Gurudev. He did many camps, 2 or 3 camps itself he has done on Vivek Chudamani in Siddhabari. And he used to do marathon camps. One month he would break it up and he would do all the 581 verses. So his commentary on it in the form of the book, all of you may have. And his DVDs are also available, where he gives beautiful talks, very, very inspiring analogies, and one can listen to those also. So here Shankaracharya ji begins. We will begin the study of this text, having known the importance of Vivek in our life, and this Vivek that the Vivek Chudamani, which it explains about, that is called Brahma Vivek. Two main categories of Vivek. One is called Dharma Vivek, other is called Brahma Vivek. So what is Dharma Vivek? There are many categories in Dharma Vivek also. Dharma Vivek is where we have the ability to know what is right, what is wrong. That is one category, Dharma and Adharma. Dharma Vivek is for us to be able to live in this world, playing our various roles and duties efficiently, and also in a very conscientious manner, where we take care of not hurting ourselves and hurting others, live with certain values and principles. So one category of Dharma Vivek is to know what is Dharma and what is Adharma, what is righteousness and what is unrighteousness. What are the values that we must follow in our life, and what are the things we must reject and avoid. Because having come from the animal realm, the law of the jungle is survival of the fittest, and hence the mind has insecurities, the mind has fear, the mind has survival instinct. And so in human life also we see that this continues. Through dharma and adharma vivek, we can slowly guide the mind out of this situation. The buddhi can be used for that. Impulsiveness can be overcome. So the power of impulse, the power of instinct, which is there in the animal realm, that can be overcome, and one can act more in a more integrated manner, where emotions and thoughts don't conflict, so that we don't hurt ourselves, we don't hurt others. So one is dharma, adharma, vivek. Second is sadhana, sadhya, vivek. The discrimination between the means and the goal. So what is the means and what is the goal? Many times what happens to us is the means itself becomes the goal. So if we ask, is money the means or the goal? So many times one says that, no, money is the means. But the fact many times is, in satsang, money is the means, but outside satsang, money becomes a very goal of life. So everything that one does revolves around that. The very purpose it becomes. The purpose of life itself becomes that. So what is the means and what is the goal? Getting particular percentage or an admission in a college or a university, that is a means. That is not the goal. But so many people, they land up in this situation where they hurt themselves, harm themselves, they get into drugs, they get into depression, even some of them commit suicide. Why? Because that has become the very goal. If they don't get that particular result, it completely devastates them, shatters them. So what is the means and what is the goal? Is God the means or the goal? Many times God becomes the means to fulfill certain other desires. Nothing wrong itself in that. There are levels of evolution in that also, devotion. So like that, what is the means and what is the goal? Not make the means as the goal, and to ensure that we adopt the means which will lead us to the goal. That is very crucial. So that is called sadhana sadhya vivek. We appropriately move towards what is that goal of life. Those kind of means are the means taking me towards the very goal of life. If the means are not taking me towards the goal of life, then I need to change the means. So dharma, dharma, vivek, then sadhan, sadhya, vivek, then sukha, dukha, vivek. What will lead to happiness and what will lead to sorrow? So many times we are not aware of that. What will lead to happiness? We know also sometimes. And what will lead to sorrow? But delusion is there in us, moha is there in us, which does not allow us to practice. So everyone knows that smoking is bad. It is harmful. But yet we find that we still indulge in that smoking. So we know it is a cause of dukkha, but still the mind will go towards that. Many such things where we know this will lead to sorrow. To get up early in the morning and to go for an exercise, that will lead to sukha, happiness as well as the strength of the body. But many times we procrastinate, we continue to sleep, and then later on the fitness levels go down. So, Sukha and Dukkha Vivek, what will harm us, what will help us, where is true happiness? Satsang has true happiness, meditation has true happiness. The means to turn within is all these, to know my nature. But the mind sometimes feels, oh, it is so difficult to do. One cannot sustain that for a long time. Sometimes one starts very enthusiastically and then gives it up. One has the opportunity to practice. You will see that even here in Vivek Chudamani, 581 verses. So a lot of people start with a lot of enthusiasm. They are called Arambha Shuraha. It starts very enthusiastically that yes, I'm going to do it. But after some time, it fizzles out. Because to sustain that inspiration throughout or to peak it, to increase it, that requires consistent effort. And so this, where is true happiness and where is sorrow? Delusion is where we see happiness as sorrow and sorrow as happiness. In all the types of Vivek, till now what we saw, Moha is to see dharma as adharma and to see adharma as dharma. So we see anger. Anger is very harmful. It will cause sorrow. It is adharma. But many times our notion in the mind is that anger is required. And without anger, I cannot get certain things done. So we will justify anger. So adharma appears as dharma, dukkha appears as sukha. So the mind goes on playing this trick with us. So this is called as moha, delusion. And Vivek is that which helps to remove this delusion. By proper discrimination, moha can be destroyed. Because moha literally means vaichitya, to see something opposite of what it is. Or to see something not as it is, but contrary in its nature. That is called as moha. And Vivek is to see something as it is. That is Gyan. Vivek is to discriminate. That is this even real? What I am considering, is it even valid? To discriminate that, then I will be able to see something as it is. The right knowledge will arise. So right now when we think of this body as real, then we have forgotten there is something higher. So Vivek is to discriminate between these two. What I see and what I don't see, and to separate them out very clearly. So Vivek is to remove this moha. So three types of dharma Vivek we saw. One is dharma and adharma. Second is sadhan and sadhya. Third is sukha and dukkha. Fourth type of Vivek is shreyas and preyas. What is good and what is pleasant. If I can do dharma, dharma, vivek, then I will be able to do shreyas and preyas also. Shreyas and preyas is what may be good need not be pleasant. To eat sattvic food, very good, but sometimes may not be very pleasant. Though it can be made pleasant also. To get up early morning and go for a walk, very good, but may not be pleasant. We may like to sleep longer. So good and pleasant. There are some things which are very pleasing, but may not be very good for us. And there are some things which are good, may not be pleasing, and there are some things which are both. So to discriminate this, Kathopanishad, in fact, before Yamraj gives Brahma Vidya, he explains this to Nachiketa, Shreyas and Preyas Vivek, good and pleasant. Recently, I had a talk on that. A very nice topic was how to choose Shreyas over Preyas in our daily life practically. We put it up on the podcast also in the audio, The audio of the talk is there on the podcast. So Shreyas and Preyas Vivek, how to discriminate and choose the good over the pleasant. And fifth one is Amsha Amshi Vivek, part and the whole. What is a part and what is the whole? The qualities of the whole are there in the part. So what is the part and what is the whole? In our life, there are different roles that we play. Each role is one part. I am a father, I am a son, I am a friend, I am a spouse. These are different roles that we play. It's a part. And then there's a whole life, my whole personality. That is the whole. Many times what happens, the part takes the place of the whole. So as a student, the moment I come to this 10th standard, everything else stops. Only study, 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 study. Why? Because that one part has gone on to occupy the whole. As a professional, many times we become workaholic. And work takes up so much of time, the whole mind, whole energy, everything goes in that. So there is imbalance in one's life, in the different roles that one is playing. So Amsha and Amshi means to discriminate between the part and the whole. That I as an individual have so many parts and I must be able to give equal importance or appropriate importance to each part. So these 5 categories of Vivek are called Dharma Vivek. And these 5 categories of Vivek must be done by us to be able to benefit from the Brahma Vivek, which is what Vivek Chudamani is all about. So Brahma Vivek is Atma Anatma Vivek, the Vivek between self and the not self. Jad Chetan Vivek, Vivek between what is inert and what is sentient. You see, the inert is appearing as sentient to us right now. This body is made up of 5 elements. But it is inert. By itself, it cannot do anything. It is not alive. The moment mind leaves this body, it is no more able to express sentiency. It drops down dead. So what is that which is actually enlivening this body? That is the consciousness, that is the sentiency factor. So these two have got mixed up, Jada and Chetan. So they have to be separated. Not only have they got mixed up, the Jada is appearing as Chetan. That's the Moha, where the delusion is happening, confusion is happening for that. Atma is appearing as Anatma, Anatma is appearing as Atma. So, Atma Anatma Vivek, Jad Chetan Vivek, Nitya Anitya Vivek. What is temporary and what is permanent? Objects are temporary. I am permanent. But many times we forget who needs whom. So then we start depending on the objects. And we want them to be there with us forever. Objects, people, situations. But they are temporary. The true I is only permanent. So these subtle forms of discrimination, they are called as Brahma Vivek. And this Vivek Chudamani will talk about the Brahma Vivek aspect. Of course, it will also do Sadhana Sadhya Vivek, that what is sadhana and what is the sadhya. Now, one aspect of Vivek is when we say discriminate. If two things are mixed up, that is where we need to discriminate. So, if there is two dissimilar things, if they get mixed up, it is easy to separate. So, rice and stone. So when we buy rice, sometimes we have to remove some of the stones which are there in that. So rice and stone, they are two dissimilar things which have got mixed up, and to separate them is easy. Now two similar things, when they get mixed up, then to separate them is very difficult. For example, milk and water, or red chili and the brick powder. It's difficult to separate them. We won't know. So much of adulteration that happens in food. We don't know what is put in what. So that is the similar things which have got mixed up. That is much more difficult to separate. But here what has happened, the two have mixed up, but we don't even know that two have mixed up. Atma and Anatma, the self and the not self, Jada and Chetan, inert and sentient, they have got mixed. And we don't know there are two, we only see one. Like even in milk and water, actually we see only one, but when we taste it, then we sometimes realize, oh, this has got diluted and there's a lot of water which has got put in it. But in this case, in our life, as far as the spiritual aspect is concerned, that is not very clear to us that there are two and they have got mixed up. So when there are two and they have got mixed up, that is not known. The fact that I can do Vivek, that also is not known. Because the two are there, that itself is not known. So what will I separate? So I think the body alone is real. That there is an Atma which is enlivening the body, no idea. If I know that, then I can separate, okay, then what is the Atma and what is the body? Even simpler aspects we don't know sometimes. Mind and intellect, two aspects of our personality. But we don't know. Emotions and thoughts. Sometimes emotions pull us in another direction. Our value system is something else. And there is a lot of pull and push that is happening, but many times we don't even know that. That there are these two aspects of our subtle body, of our mind, and one is the emotions, one is the thoughts. So the mind and intellect are two different aspects. Now they got mixed up as only one. So in that situation, Vivek becomes very difficult to do. Human being is capable of this separation. That's the Sukshma Vivek, where the two have got mixed up, but they are not known, they are seen as only one. See, the first type of Vivek anybody will do, where two dissimilar things have got mixed up. So even an animal will do. It will take away what all is beneficial and what all it can consume, and it will leave the rest. In dissimilar things when they have got mixed up. In similar things which have got mixed up, there is the example given of the swan. So the swan takes the milk, leaves out the water. But only human being is capable of the third Vivek, which is where two have got mixed up as one. Then to analyze that, oh, there are two, and then to separate them out, that is a special ability of the human being. And so that is what is the Atma Anatma Vivek. So literally the word Vivek means Prithak Karanam, to separate out. Vichir Prithak Karane, it is to separate out. So Vivek Chudamani will help us to understand that how there are these two, Atma and Anatma, and then how to get out of identification with Anatma and how to get established as Atma. So let us get into the text. This was the basic introduction about Vivek and Vivek Chudamani. And as a text, this is divided into 7 portions. Not 7, there are lots of them, but it answers 7 questions. When we come to that, I will explain about that. Today, let us start with the invocation verse. So whenever we are doing the verse and I'm chanting the verse, you can repeat. So at that time, if you want to unmute your audio, you can unmute the audio so that I can know that you are chanting and the feedback is there. So the first verse is the invocation. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam
Gocharam Tamagocharam
Govindam Paramanandam
Govindam
Paramanandam
Sadgurum
Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham.
Hear you. So now you can mute your audio. So this is a very simple, inspiring verse. Invocation is always done in our culture where before any auspicious work is taken up, auspicious work happens, the grace of the Lord is invoked, because we always believe we are not the doer, Bhagwan is the doer. Karta is the Lord himself. And so invoke the grace of the Lord, invoke the blessings of the Guru, Parampara, and become empty. To invoke means to be empty and to allow the higher in us, allow the higher to manifest through us. So this invocation is one invocation, but invokes both the Supreme Lord as well as the Sadguru. So what is it saying here? Shankaracharya ji says, Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tam Agocharam. That truth which is agochar. Agochar means which is not perceptible to the senses. Go means senses. Gochara means not perceptible to the senses. Agochara means not perceptible to the senses. So that truth, absolute reality, which is not perceptible to the senses. But then how do I know it? So Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam. Through the principles revealed in the Vedanta, it will be known. So the senses can't perceive it, but through Vedantic knowledge, contemplation, one will know the truth. Like we can't see the infrared rays, but when we have those special glasses, then we are able to perceive them. So same way, Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam. Through the knowledge of the Vedantic principles or through knowledge of Vedanta, that which is known, which is otherwise not known. Govindam, that state is the state of Govinda. It is a state of Paramananda. Govinda means one who is enlivening the senses, that pure consciousness. Go means the senses, an enlivener of that. So that Supreme Lord is also called Govinda as consciousness, Govinda as Lord Krishna, Bhagwan Vishnu. That state is the state of Paramananda, supreme bliss. So I invoke that supreme, the grace of that Supreme Lord, Brahman, pure consciousness, Lord Vishnu, the state of supreme Ananda, and Sadgurum, who is my Sadguru also. Who is the Sadguru of Shankaracharya ji? So Govinda Bhagavat Pada is the Guru of Shankaracharya. Pranatosmyaham, I salute. So I salute to that Supreme Lord who is nameless, formless, attributeless, pure consciousness, who is enlivening the senses. I salute that Supreme Lord Govinda, who is Lord Narayana. And I salute my Sadguru, who is Govinda Bhagavat Pada. Why? Because when we invoke the grace of the Guru and the Supreme Lord, then I become an instrument for the higher to manifest. And so we see that every composition begins with an invocation that let the Supreme manifest through us. So even when we do any simple, any auspicious thing, suppose we buy a house, or uh, we are going to start a new job, or we get a new vehicle, or we start any function, before any of that, we invoke the grace of the Lord. Even before this class we began, we did the invocation, Sahana Vavatu. So invocation is a very, very important aspect. We start itself by invoking the grace of the Lord, blessings of the Lord, that may this study lead us to that supreme fulfillment. The state of Paramananda indicated here, may the study help us to achieve that state. So Shankaracharya ji here, he has given both these aspects, that why Sadguru. Now he invokes the grace of the Lord as well as his teacher. In Vedanta we say Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. That is the faith that one has in the master. Shankaracharya ji went searching for his master, Govinda Bhagavat Pada. All the way from Kerala he went searching, and he reached the banks of Narmada at Omkareshwar in Madhya Pradesh, and there he found his Guru. Now he did not need a Guru. Shankaracharya ji himself is an avatar of Lord Shiva. But the need of the Guru is emphasized to all of us by all these great masters, as well as avatars of Bhagavan. Lord Krishna, he doesn't need a Guru, but Sandipani Rishi was his Guru. Sandipani also happens to be near that place. Then Bhagavan Ram did not need a Guru, but Vasishtha and Vishwamitra were his Guru, were his Gurus. So in Vedanta especially, the need for a Guru very, very strongly, it is said in the Veda also, Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One who has an Acharya will know the truth. Because it's a very subtle path. It's like walking on the razor's edge. Our ego plays such subtle tricks that we ourselves are not able to recognize, oh God, I came under the influence of my own ego. So we all need an altar of surrender, and a Guru is an altar of surrender. And the Guru is the means to experience that state of Paramananda and Govinda. So a person who has a Sadguru, has an altar of surrender, is the person who is able to experience the supreme truth, because the ego is able to surrender. Because the ego needs that kind of a emotional pushing. Otherwise we are pushed by our own vasanas, and we keep doing work which will strengthen our vasanas. What is that which will help me to get out of that? That is the devotion towards the Lord, towards the Sadguru. And when one sees a person living those values, associating with that person, slowly those come inside us. So like we say, a lit candle will light another one. In the same way, a Sadguru who is established in the truth, who is well versed in the scriptures, makes us realize that. So the very fact that Shankaracharya ji sought his Guru all the way and he went. And it is said that Govinda Bhagavat Pada lived for 1,000 years. And he was waiting for Shankaracharya ji. So to that great master, Shankaracharya ji offers his prostrations and salutations, also indicates the humility. That even the incarnation of the Lord consciously goes and seeks out a Sadguru, surrenders there, gains the knowledge, takes permission before he writes commentaries, that shows the humility. That shows the importance of surrender. And that's what the invocation is. Invocation must bring these two aspects. The bhav has to be this, that I surrender and I am only an instrument, I am not the doer. So surrender and humility. Every time we chant the invocation, it is to invoke these two qualities. And of course, the third reason is the peace. When it is a Shanti mantra or a peace invocation. So generally we use Upanishadic Shanti mantras in the beginning. Here it is a general invocation of the Lord and of the Sadguru. And through surrender and through humility, when the mind becomes peaceful, then we are ready to absorb this knowledge. So that's the beauty of this invocation. For today, we will stop here. And if any of you have any doubts or anything you want to interact on, you are welcome. You can unmute your audio, speak up, and then mute it back.
Hari Om Swamiji, Gulshan here.
Hari Om.
Swamiji, I am totally new to the story of Adi Shankaracharya himself.
Right.
So, if you can share a little bit of background about how he came to his journey to start with, that might help me to understand a little bit better.
Definitely. So we will do that in tomorrow's class. The brief description of Shankaracharya's life and what was his vision. We will take it up tomorrow. Okay. So I hope the audio and the video both are clear to you.
Yes, excellent.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Swami.
This is being done directly through, so there is a web camera here also, and I'm just recording it on that. So there will be a Google Drive. There will be a link which will be sent to you of a folder. So you can save that link, because every day we will not be sharing the video link. The videos will be put up in that folder. So if you want to refer at any time, or those of you who have not, who you know, your friends or anybody who has not been able to join here right now, they can use that video and they can understand. Okay. We'll stop for today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.